So I'll be explaining about the introduction of the institutionalist school. So basically, institutionalist school emerged in the late of 19th and 20th centuries as a portraying a way of criticism for the classical and neoclassical economics. So these historical economics can be understood by these two approaches, which is the relativist and absolutist approaches. For relativist approaches, explain that economic theories are shaped by the social, political, and economic conditions of a particular period. In contrast, for the absolute approaches, it is the economic theory that arguing developed through improvements and corrections of previous ideas. Its generations of economists add new insights to solve weaknesses in earlier theories. So we have six lasting contributions of the institutionalist school. First, we have influence of Keynesian economics. Obviously, was influenced by the John Maynard Keynesian microeconomics, particularly is emphasizing the role of government intervention to stabilize inflation, unemployment, and economic recession. Second, we have support the government intervention and economic planning, because obviously all not all the economic issues can be solved, so their ideas were to support the government involvement through policies such as national economic planning, resource conservation, full employment strategies, and also improving international competitiveness. Third, we have contribution to social and labor reforms. This was strongly influenced by the social policies, including legal protections for labor unions, minimum wage laws, maximum working hours, and so many more, which to continue to shape modern welfare by today. Fourth, we have emphasized on institution economic development, which this was the key contributions that was recognized that institutions such as laws, governments, education systems, and social norms that play essential role in economic growth and development, especially in development countries. Fifth, we have influence on modern economic fields, which this idea was contributed to the development of several modern fields such as labor relations, industrial organizations, and law and economics, showing that economics must be connected with wider social issues. And last, we have foundation for new institutional economics, which this institutional school was laid to the foundation for modern institutional economics, where economists study how institutions such as property rights, family structures, and organizational rules affect economic efficiency and behavior.
I will explain the major tenets of institutional economics. Institutional economics is a school of economic thoughts that focus on relationship between the economy, society, and institutions. Unlike traditional economic theories that mainly focus on individuals and market force, institutional economics emphasize the importance of social system, customs, laws, and organization influencing economic activities. In this light, there are several important tenets such as the holistic perspective, focus on institutions, evolutionary approach, clash of interests, liberal democratic reform, and rejection of the pleasure pain psychology. These ideas show that the economy is closely connected with society and cannot be studied separately from social and political factors. The first important idea is the holistic or broad perspective. Institutional economists believe that the economy must be studied as a whole because all parts of society are interconnected. Economic activities are influenced not only by markets but also by politics, sociology, law, customs, and culture. For example, people's spending habits, business decisions, and working conditions are affected by government policies, social values, and cultural practice. Therefore, institutional economists reject the idea that the economy can be understood only through individual actions or personal profit motive. They also believe that collective action is important. Society functions through cooperation between groups, organizations, and institutions. Because of this, the economy should be analyzed as part of a larger social system rather than as separate individual activities. The second important idea is the focus on institutions. Institutional economists emphasize that institutions play a major role in shaping economic behavior and decision making. Institutions can be divided into formal institutions and informal institutions. Formal institutions include governments, schools, banks, laws, and organizations that have official structures and rules. Informal institutions include customs, traditions, social habits, beliefs, and ways of thinking that influence society. According to institutional economists, economic decisions are not controlled only by market force or personal interest. Instead, human behavior is strongly influenced by institutions and social environments. For example, laws can regulate business activities, while culture and traditions can influence customer behavior. Another important tenet is the evolutionary approach by Darwin. Institutional economists believe that society and economic institutions are always changing over time. Because of this, economics should not remain static or fixed. Instead, economic theories must adapt according to social and economic change. This idea was influenced by Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, which explained that living things develop and change over time. Similarly, institutional economists believe that economic system, institutions, and human behavior also evolve. The focus on questions such as how societies develop, why change happen, and where the economy is heading in the future. In addition, this approach combines knowledge from many fields such as history, sociology, political science, psychology, and anthropology. Therefore, institutional economics take a broader and more realistic approach in understanding economic development and social change. The next tenet is the rejection of the idea of formal equilibrium. Institutional economists disagree with the traditional economic belief that the economy will always naturally return to balance or stability. They believe that economic problems such as unemployment, inflation, poverty, and trade deficit are normal situations that can continuously happen in society. Institutional economists describe this as cyclical causation, while one economic problem can lead to another problem. For example, unemployment can reduce income and spending, which may then slow down economic growth. Because of this, they believe economic problems cannot always solve themselves automatically. Therefore, institutional economists support government intervention to correct economic problems and improve social welfare. They believe governments should play an active role in managing the economy instead of depending fully on free markets or laissez-faire policies. Another major tenet is clash of interest. Institutional economists reject the idea that harmony always exists between all groups in society. Instead, they believe conflicts of interest naturally occur because different groups have different goals and needs. People usually cooperate and form groups to protect their own interests. However, conflicts may happen between business and consumers, employers and workers, farmers and urban societies, or producers and importers. Each group tries to gain benefits that are favorable to them. Because of these conflicts, institutional economists believe the government should have balanced competing interests in society. Government policies and regulations are important to ensure fairness, social stability, and the smooth functioning of the economy. The next tenet is liberal and democratic reform. Institutional economists support reforms that can improve social welfare and create a more equal distribution of wealth and income in society. They believe the economy should not only focus on profit but also on fairness and social justice. Institutional economists criticize laissez-faire policies because they think free markets alone cannot solve all economic and social problems. Instead, they support a larger role for the government in economic and social affairs. For example, the government can introduce taxes, subsidies, minimum wages, and public spending programs to reduce inequality and improve living standards. Overall, they believe reform and government policies are important in creating a fairer and more stable society. The final tenet is the rejection of pleasure-pain psychology. Traditional economists believe that people always make economic decisions based on personal satisfaction, pleasure, and self-interest. However, institutional economists reject this simple assumption about human behavior. They believe human decisions are also influenced by psychology, habits, culture, the traditions, and social environment. People do not always act rationally to maximize profit or satisfaction because emotions and social influences also affect their behavior. Because of this, institutional economists introduce ideas from psychology, including Freudian and behaviorist theories, into economic analysis. This approach helps explain human behavior in a more realistic and practical way. This slide explains who benefited from institutionalism and who the movement aimed to help. The main group was the middle class, especially during the growth of big business and capitalism. Institutionalists also represent the interests of farmers, small business owners, and labor groups who want fairer economic opportunities. Besides that, many reformers, government workers, humanitarian leaders, and academics supported institutionalism because it focused on social change and improving society through economic reform. This slide explains why the institutionalist school was considered useful and relevant during its time. Institutionalists view the economy in a more realistic way by focusing on the economy as a whole and its connection with society. They were concerned about major issues such as business circles and monopolies, which affected economic stability and fairness. Institutionalists also promote reform movement to reduce the negative effect of capitalism and improve economic conditions. In addition, they emphasize real-world observation and practical studies to connect economic theory with actual social problems.
Hi, my name is Gavin Tanjunje, metric number 304005. Now I will discuss about Thorstein Bunde Veblen, which is one of the most important contributor to institutionalist school. So Veblen was an American economics and sociologist who lived from 1857 until 1929. He earned a PhD in philosophy from Yale University and also studied economics at Cornell University. He is widely known as the founder of institutional economics. Throughout his career, he worked as a professor at University of Chicago, Stanford University, and the University of Missouri. So one of his most famous publication was the Theory of Leisure Class, which published in 1899. So in this book, Veblen introduced several important ideas such as conspicuous consumption, the tendency to avoid useful work, and also conservatism. So in the Theory of Leisure Class, Veblen explained three major concepts. The first concept is conspicuous consumption, which refers to the people purchasing expensive goods to display wealth and social status. So the second concept is about the propensity to avoid useful work, where upper class individuals avoid productive labor because it is associated with the lower class. So the third concept is the conservatism, where a healthy group resists social change in order to protect their power and privileges. First, let us look at the conspicuous consumptions. According to Veblen, people often buy expensive goods and services not because they truly need them, but because they want to show wealth, prestige, power, and social status to others. In a pecuniary culture, visible consumption becomes a way to gain recognition and respect in society. So Veblen even argued that for consumption to be considered reputable, but it must be wasteful. So he also explained that poorer groups may imitate the spending pattern of wealthy people so that they will not appear inferior in society. Veblen further stated that women are often used to display the wealth of men. For example, by wearing expensive clothing or shoes that prevent useful labor, showing that they are supported by a wealthy husband. So this idea challenged neoclassical economics because neoclassical economists assume that the consumer behave rationally to maximize utility. However, Veblen believed that consumer behavior is wrongly influenced by culture, habits, social pressure, and the desire for status rather than purely logical economic reasoning. The next concept is the propensity to avoid useful work. So Veblen argued that members of leisure class avoid productive and manual labor because useful work associated with lower social classes. Instead, they participate in leisure activity and occupation that symbolize prestige and honor, such as sport, ceremonies, politics, government activities, and luxury lifestyles. According to Veblen, the upper class maintained its social reputation by avoiding useful labor and displaying wealth through non-productive activities. He also argued that force and fraud still exist in modern society, just as they exist in earlier barbarian societies, and this behavior can still be observed in welfare, business, sport, and games. Next, we will move on to the idea of conservatism. So Veblen explained that the evolution of social structure happened through a process similar to natural selection, which is influenced by Darwin evolutionary theory. So he believed that society and institutions continuously evolve over time. So however, the leisure class tend to resist change because they benefit from the existing economic and social system. They want to preserve their wealth, power, and social position. And this conservative attitude slow down the social and institutional progress. Veblen summarized this conservative mindset with the phrase, "Whatever is right." But according to the evolutionary approach applied in institutions, Veblen argued instead that whatever is wrong, meaning institutions should continue evolving and improving rather than remaining unchanged. Veblen also strongly criticized neoclassical economics. So according to neoclassical economists, individuals behave rationally, consumer maximize utility, and the market naturally move towards equilibrium through supply and demand. So however, Veblen believed these assumptions were unrealistic and too theoretical. He argued that economic behavior is heavily influenced by institutions, culture, habit, tradition, and social pressure rather than purely rational calculation. For example, consumers do not always purchase goods based on usefulness or certification. So instead, they may buy products to gain social status, which related to the idea of conspicuous consumption. Other than that, Veblen also criticized the neoclassical ideas of perfect competitions, which business often manipulate consumer preference and use their economic power to strengthen their market position rather than allowing free and fair competitions. So Veblen, he attacked the laissez-faire capitalism because he believed that unrestricted market could create inequalities, exploitation, wasteful consumption, and social conflicts. Ecosystems should not be analyzed only through price and profit, but also through the study of institution and social relationship. Veblen lastly criticized the static nature of neoclassical economics, which society and institutions continuously evolve over time, and economics should adopt an evolutionary and dynamic approach rather than assuming that ecosystem remain stable and balanced. That's all from me. Next, I will pass to my another group mate.
Good morning, lecturer and all my fellow friends. My name is Wang Isan. My entry number is 3055751. So today I would like to talk about Michel. He was born on 5 August 1874 in Louisville and was an American economist. He received his PhD from University of Chicago in 1899 and later taught economics there. He also worked as a professor at University of California and Columbia University. Michel was a brilliant student for Trangio Villian. Unlike Villian, who focused more on theory, Michel focused on empirical study using real data and statistics. His main contribution was his research on business cycle and economics fluctuation. His work made institutionalism more scientific and evidence-based. Michel's greatest contribution was in the study for business fluctuation and business cycle. His major work in this topic was published more than 20 years before the Great Depression and before. John Maynard Keynes published the General Theory for Environment, Interest, and Money. Michel described his business cycle theory as a working hypothesis because he believed it was temporary and could be revised when new evidence was discovered. His theory focused more on test explanation based on real experience and evidence rather than pure logistic reasoning. From his empirical research on business cycle, Michel developed 4 major conclusions. Next, about the business cycle. Michel's greatest contribution was in the study on business fluctuation and business cycle. His major work on this topic was published more than 20 years before the Great Depression and before John Maynard Keynes published the General Theory for Employment, Interest, and Money. Michel described his business cycle theory as a working hypothesis because he believed it was temporary and could be revised when new evidence was discovered. His theory focused more on test explanation based on real experience and evidence rather than pure logical reasoning. From his empirical research on business cycle, Michel developed 4 major conclusions. So next is the Michel 4 major conclusions on business cycle. So first of all is the foundation errors in a money economy. Michel believed crisis and depression happen in a money-based economy not because of capitalism itself. The events used for money, credit, spending, investment, and profit create business cycle. Economic activity increase or decrease depending on how money flow in the economy. So second is the business cycle are widely diffused. So business and industry are interconnected. Change in one sector can spread to other sectors through credit system and corporate network. For example, if one industry faces problem, the whole economics might also be affected. So third is the foundation depends on prospect for profit. Business decisions are based on expected profit. When firms expect higher profit, they increase investment and production. But when profits are expected to fall, business reduce spending and production. Michel said only government and charitable organizations can cooperate without focusing on profit. Fourth is the foundation are systematically generated. Business cycles happen naturally and repeatedly. Each spread led to another praise, revival, prosperity, crisis, and depression. Michel believed business cycles should be studied using cumulative and continual analysis. In the other hand is social planning, Michel 1935. So first is the business system is imperfect. Michel believed that figure economics crisis showed that the business system alone could not maintain stability. Economic problems and fluctuation happen repeatedly in the economy. So second is a cause that worsen economy's problem. Expanding market and large business combination make the economics more complex. People can stop buying semi-duration goods during bad economy time, causing demand to fall. Farmers move to city and become dependent on market instead of producing for themselves, making them more vulnerable during crisis. Third is the solution, social or national planning. Mitchell suggests careful, social or national planning to reduce harmful economic fluctuation. The goal was to maintain economic freedom while improving economic security and stability. Third is the historical example for planning in the US. The US Constitution was considered a form for national planning for government. Alexander Hamilton helped plan economic recovery effort in early American. Economic planning was also used during wartime mobilization from 1917 until 1918. 5 is the challenge for national planning. People often disagree on goal and priority, making it difficult to unite the society. Because the economy is interconnected, small or incomplete plan might create unintended effects such as prohibition in the United States. So, in conclusion, Mitchell concluded that national planning is necessary. Planning should be systematic, true, and should consider both direct and indirect effects on the economy.
Hi everyone, my name is Lukaden and today and my metric number is 305284. And today I would like to present the part of the John Kinney Galbraith. And first of all, he was born in Canada and studied at the University of Toronto and California. He was the post of chief economy in the American Farm Bureau Federation, high position with the US government during the Second World War, membership on the board of editor of the Future magazine, ambassador to India when during the Kennedy administration, professor of economy from the Harvard University, and the chairman of the American of Democratic Action. And he was also a novelist and an expert on fun Easter art. His major writing was Constitute Ball and Attack on New Classical Economy, Talk and an analysis of model capitalist conventional wisdom. Galbraith critiqued the non-classical conventional wisdom is a set of ideas that is familiar to all, rarely accepted, but not longer relevant. His evolutionary approach explore changing condition and examines the need to change our idea to fix the new situation. He highlighted that his attack was on the conventional wisdom, but not on those who originally expounded the idea. Within the Galbraith's overall theory of modern capitalism, one can find several specific theories that challenge the orthodox economy. Is two theories of the particular importance are A, the dependent effect, B is the theory of the firm behavior. Okay, now we look at first the dependence effect. Okay, according to Galbraith, modern capitalism is dominated by large enterprise and characterized by an abundance of country once they are the product of corporate branding and massive advertising. It is not the consumer who are sourced in the modern industry system, but rather the gigantic firm they produce and market goods and service. In Galbraith revised sequence, producers decide that what should be produced, and then more consumer thus so that they buy this product. Orthodox economy holds that initiative lives with the consumer, who buy goods and service in the market in response to personal desire of demand. The neoclassical theory of consumer choice takes once as given. The questions asked by Galbraith is that how consumers go about formulating that once in the first place. Galbraith say that one cannot define the production as satisfying once the production create the wants. Garbich's theory of consumer demand has an important policy implication. There will be an under-allocation of resource to public goods, which will cause a social imbalance. The creation of artificial wants through advertising and the propensity for emulation shift resource toward the private goods and away from public goods. They have greater inherent value. For example, the new automobile are seen as being more important than new road. One way to remedy this imbalance, say by Gabriel, would be to impose the sales tax on the consumer goods and service. The objective was to increase the availability of public sector goods and service. B. Gabriel theory of the firm. The neoclassical theory of the firm conclude that the corporate behavior and performance can best be understood by assuming that the firms attempt to maximize the profit. Gabriel say this may be true in the market sector. The owner of small firm actively manage their enterprise, but not the branding sector, which the ownership and control are disposed. The disgruntled storeholder who does not like the performance of a particular firm does not have the option of firing the management. The usual resource is to sell the shares of the company and to buy the share of other company. The technostructure is a group of experts consisting of executive, manager, engineer, scientist, product planner, market researcher, marketing personnel, and so forth. Gabriel assumed that the technostructure not only has an incentive to maximize the return to the million of anonymous storeholder, but it also pursued much more complex purpose, which he has categorized as into two, which is the protective and the affirmative. Protective purpose. The central protective purpose of the firm is survive, which translates into the need to earn a profit sufficient to keep most storeholders relatively happy and to provide the sufficient returning for investment and growth. One way that this less than maximum profit can be assured is by taking the product price up of the competition. Doing this can take the form either of direct pricing fixing of the informal price understanding between an industry. The purpose is to ensure that the revived firms earn a satisfactory level of profit, thus enabling them to meet their protective goal and to pursue their affirmative purpose. Okay, the second one, affirmative purpose. The major affirmative purpose of the firm is corporate goal of output, sales, and revenue produce greater employment security and financial rewards to the member of the technostructure. In the orthodox theory of the firm, oligopolies restrict their production in order to boost their price and enhance their profit, and say that no point is better accepted by the neoclassical model than that the monopoly price is higher and the output smaller than is socially ideally. The public is the victim because of such exploitation. Oligopoly is weakest. In Gabriel theory, oligopolistic fix the price at low level. Once that can be achieved and in a minimum profit and permit the expansion of total output and sales. Huge advertising outlet campaign to gain the market share. Unprofitable merging between the competitive and non-competitive firms, and so form all make perfect sense if the goal is growth. According to Gabriel, the neoclassical model describes an year that does not exceed a high oligopolistic price and restrict output, because it assumes a purpose there is not pursued the profit maximization. Policy implication. Gabriel theory of the firm has several interesting policy implications. For example, traditional antitrust efforts should be abandoned. Their side on to economy of scale, large research and development budget, and the ability to incorporate new technology. The public, through government, must raise control of the branding sector of the economy from the technostructure, ensuring it serves the public purpose and should take several forms. For example, a permanent public price and wage agency should control the price of the largest firm in the economy. and to ensure that the wage gain in the major collective bargaining agreement do not exceed the goal of national productivity. The Profit Planning Authority needs to be established to join with the major corporations and unions to plan and coordinate economic activity. This planning authority will also have to coordinate the economic plans with other industry nations. Along with this reform, Gabriel call for government redistribution of income through the public control of executive salary, progressive taxation, and increase in the minimum wages, and a negative income tax plan. Firms in the market sector should be encouraged to merge so that they can compete more effectively with the firm in the planning sector. Gabriel saw the need for the greatly expanded role for government in the modern economy.
Next, about the summary, Weber criticized capitalist and wealthy social behavior. He introduced the leisure class and conspicuous consumption, where rich people show off wealthy to gain status. He also discussed the propensity to avoid useful work, conservatives, and criticizing neoclassical economics for ignoring real social behavior. So next, about the Varsity Chair Mitchell emphasized the importance for empirical investigation, meaning economics should be based on real data and facts. He studied business cycle and supporting social planning to stabilize the economics. So next is the John Keynes Gabori, focus on cooperation and consumption society. He introduced the conventional wisdom and the dependent effect, where advertising influenced consumption wants. In Gabori theory for the firm, cooperation have two, which is the productive purpose and the affirmative purpose. For the productive purpose, which is the protective profit and survival, and the next for the affirmative purpose, which is the contributing to society and welfare. In conclusion, institutional economics began with Weber and focused on how institutions influence the economy. It rejected laissez-faire ideas supporting the government intervention and promoted social welfare and fair wealth distribution. Economics like Wesley Cherry Michel and John Keynes Gabori helped create reform that impressed minimum wage law, social insurance, and a fair economic system.